Hello everyone. Now it is the time to finally talk about the album that introduced me to the Deer Hunter, that being the Deer Hunters Act 4, Rebirth in Reprise. I was introduced to this band my junior year of high school when a buddy of mine slipped me a piece of paper with the album name on it and told me to listen to it all the way through that night without shuffling. I listened to it that night, and I remember walking into the kitchen to tell my mom that I was listening to what might have been the greatest music I had ever heard. This album is phenomenal in a way that I can't really describe. If you've listened to the album, then you know. Something about this album transcends normal music for me and hits me in a way that is impossible to properly explain. The Deer Hunter isn't a band that works for everyone. I have friends who don't get why I'm so obsessed with them, but if this album works for you, then it will surely become one of your favorite albums. If this is the first of these videos that you have seen, then welcome. I'm Davis Morgan, and I do in-depth analysis for the Deer Hunter's Acts series of albums. I've already covered Acts 1 through 3. If you haven't seen those, then I highly recommend you watch those before watching this one. If you just want to learn about Act 4, then we can do that as well. In these videos, I cover the story of every single song in order, line by line. I will explain the broader story of the album while also doing some analysis of the lyrical devices used in the writing. By the end of it, you will know the entire story of Act 4, Rebirth and Reprise. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. I've got my own personal music up here, more Deer Hunter stuff, and I'm going to be starting a series where I interview other amateur musicians. So if you're interested in being exposed to more music by underrated bands, this is the place to be. Before we begin the analysis proper, let's recap what has happened in the story so far. In the late 1800s in the United States, a woman named Miss Terry, not Mystery, Miss Terry, it's a play on words, gives birth to a child who she names Hunter. Hunter lives his entire life up until adulthood as a sheltered child living on a homestead by a lake. The reason for Miss Terry's isolation of Hunter is that she doesn't have the best view of the world. She is a sex worker who works at the Dime, a brothel that coerces young women into working for them while encouraging the men to be rough with the ladies. This brothel is owned by the pimp and the priest, a brutal, greedy man who is both the owner of the Dime and the priest in charge of the town's local church. He entices men to commit sins with the woman of the Dime and then charges them in order to have those sins forgiven at the church. The pimp and the priest is always depicted as wearing a mask, so the rest of the town does not know the relationship between the Dime and the church. Miss Terry was one of the few people that knew of the truth of this double identity. After a life of hardship and misery, Miss Terry forbids Hunter from going to the city where she works. As Hunter is entering adulthood, Miss Terry takes her own life and Hunter decides to go to town in order to find some meaning and answers in his life. Hunter comes across the Oracles, a group of spirits with prophetic ability that essentially tell him to face his own problems head on and to not be ashamed of his love. Hunter makes it to the city and is enticed by a woman, who is named Miss Leading, into sleeping with her at the Dime. After a passionate night together, Hunter assumes that the two of them are in love, not knowing what a brothel is. When he wakes up, she is gone and he comes face to face with the pimp and the priest, who offers him a job as Miss Leading's driver. Hunter accepts. Miss Leading and Hunter start a relationship. She feels bad for him and sees that he isn't like the other men that take advantage of her. Despite this budding romance, Hunter is oblivious to the fact that he is driving her around to meet other men. One day, Hunter runs inside the house where Miss Leading is working at and sees her with another man. Embarrassed and furious, he dumps Miss Leading and convinces himself that she never loved him. This isn't true, however, as her feelings for him are real but complicated. After a bitter exchange between Hunter and Miss Leading, Hunter goes against the advice of the Oracles and gets on a boat to leave the city. Sometime later, Hunter is conscripted into World War I. The Oracles appear to Hunter again and tell him that joining the army may be the only way to save his soul. If he listens to their advice and keeps his head up, he can still be saved. War is hell for Hunter. He fights a terrible battle before stumbling upon a shack with a woman who poisons everyone who crosses her path. This woman takes pity on Hunter, however, and spares him, leaving him with the bottle of poison. After another vicious battle, Hunter is saved by another group of soldiers. In this group is a crude, vile man and his son. The man tells the soldiers of his time spent at the Dime. Hunter connects the dots and realizes that this terrible man is his father. The son in the group of soldiers is Hunter's half-brother. Hunter travels with the father and son until another battle leaves the son mortally wounded. Hunter says goodbye to his brother and, realizing that they look strikingly similar, plots to assume his identity in order to leave behind his own troubled past. Tying up the loose ends, Hunter poisons his father with the bottle given to him by the woman, steals the dog tags off his brother's body, and returns home from the war, ready to leave his old life of sorrow behind and begin anew as his half-brother. It is here that the story of Act 4, Rebirth and Reprise, begins. Track 1, Rebirth. The first track on this album takes place an unspecified amount of time after the end of Act 3. Hunter is now living under his half-brother's identity back in the city that he left at the end of Act 2. He is living with the mother, or the mother of his half-brother. I will refer to her as the mother from now on just to make things a little bit less complicated. If I'm ever referring to Hunter's actual mother, Miss Turi, I will call her Miss Turi. With this song, we see that the Oracles have once again found Hunter and are giving him some more cryptic advice. While it seems that Hunter's plan is working, he is living a new life with his caring mother, there are still issues to be found in his plan. A sinister slide resounds. The first notes in this chapter of Hunter's life are sinister. The plan that Hunter has created may not be everything he thought it was. It may have been good for a moment, but the sinister, cruel reality of the world is making its way back into his life. From the fountainhead found, when fortune aligned. The fountainhead being talked about here is the father, the head of Hunter's family who happened to stumble upon him in the war. This life was given to Hunter through fortunate coincidence, and he is doing everything he can to maintain this illusion. But like the first line mentioned, there was always something sinister in these plans. They were never just a miracle given to Hunter, they were a cruel twist of fate that he was too blinded by anger and sadness to see. Sorry, there's a typo in this next little graphic here. If any of those show up, I'm sorry about that. It's really hard for me to change those, and these videos take a long time to make, and I make them when I'm usually very tired, so sorry for that, but just listen to my voice for this one. The roots that ripped had run too deep, left to dig in the weeds and climb up the vine. While Hunter has done a good job of assuming this new identity, the inner pains and motives that he has are too deep to be forgotten. He may be able to fool everyone else, but he cannot fool himself into shedding his tortured past. Hunter is left to dig in the weeds. He's trying to get rid of any trace of who he was, but no matter how hard he tries, he will still leak out into the world and climb up the vine. He has always been described as the fire to Miss Turi's flame. Even though he may try to snuff out the flame of his identity, the fire will always remain. Your mind is only echoing what your heart wouldn't say. I'll be me in time. These thoughts that are creeping into Hunter's head now are only the things that he knew in his heart but wouldn't acknowledge. For the first time since taking his brother's identity, he is thinking that maybe he would have grown into the person he wanted to be eventually. Hunter's master plan was a shortcut into making himself into someone greater. Instead of doing that work on himself, he ran, hid, fought, and stole. This new identity can only take him so far, but now that he has this new life with the mother, it's too late to go back. Beyond that, Hunter's just too stubborn to let go. He always has been. This song is a great introduction, and it lets us experience the Deer Hunter's new signature sound, the full orchestra backing. This album and the next are backed up by an orchestra that sounds truly jaw-dropping. Rather than going with a fully orchestrated sound, the band stays true to their rock roots and continues to use pounding drums and electric guitars while fusing them with the gentler sounds of an orchestra. It creates some of the most beautiful music that you will ever hear. Now that the Oracles have said their piece and Hunter is finally coming back to Earth, he's ready to start the pain of this new chapter in his life. He attempts to turn himself into something new, and that has just really led him down to his own rebirth back into himself. Track 2, The Old Haunt. The Deer Hunter never misses with their second track on an album. This song is just more proof of that. The ending section before they transition into Act 3 has some of the most impressive build-up and orchestration that I have ever heard. I've said before that the band was able to lean into the orchestra aspect of the new sound without letting go of their rock roots, and this song is the perfect testament to that. You can tell the song was written for a rock band first and foremost, and then embellished with the orchestra later. Absolute perfection. Hints of a higher hand, lost on the Somme. Already we've got some work to do in this song. The Somme was a large battle fought in World War I between the British Empire and the French Empire against the Germans. Its use in this song is used to mostly indicate just World War I as a whole. The higher hand being hinted at is most likely the brother's position in life. Hunter saw his brother as having everything that Hunter didn't. He then sought to steal that life from him and take his winning hand. That winning hand, however, was lost in World War I, and Hunter never really gained access to it. Past deeds would never lead the mischief to a christening. Hunter wished to turn his past deeds, his mistakes and regrets, into something pure by abandoning his old life. But that life of mischief is not so easily left behind, and any attempt to convert it into something else better has failed him. Gears twist and grind away, sped up to speed. The unstoppable force that is Hunter's life cannot be stopped. In this moment, he is returning back to that life and coming out of the denial that he has put himself in. If we can imagine Hunter's sorrow as an engine, it is now back up to full speed. While echoed silhouette deliver to an early dream. Hunter and the mother are essentially recreating the life that Hunter lived before going to the city. He is taking care of her and she is providing him with affection. They are the echoes of what Hunter once was, but isn't quite the same. They are merely the silhouettes of a dream that Hunter cannot find. Held out of love, but gripped too tight, a breath left hanging in the air. This can refer to two different things. The first being Hunter's youth and being so coddled and sheltered by Miss Therese that he never knew the world and thus fell victim to his own naivety. She thought she was protecting him, but his lack of knowledge caused so much of his pain. The second is that Hunter is now holding the mother too tight. He's becoming far too dependent on her and has fallen back into the same old trap. They have the same relationship that will cause Hunter even more pain. A breath left hanging in the air can refer to Hunter's life that he never dealt with. There are still loose ends that he has decided not to deal with. Another interpretation of this line is that holding someone too tight will surely squeeze the air out of it. It will kill it. You want to leave your home, but you don't want to lose control. Hunter is now getting advice from the mother. She seems more willing to let him go free than Miss Therese was, at least acknowledging Hunter's desires. But he can't help himself from wanting to leave this life that he has made. But still, he's worried that he will lose control of himself if he does. These lyrics could also be internal from Hunter. He's telling himself that he knows deep down that he needs to stop playing pretend, but doing so will cause him to lose control of the relationship that he has with the mother. And there's far too many ways to die, far too many ways to die. Hunter has been through war and he knows how dangerous the world is. He's starting to think that staying sheltered with the mother is the best thing for him, that staying away from the outside can cause him to escape the death that has always been coming for him. This could also be a plea from the mother for Hunter to stay home and not risk the outside world. While she may be a little more lenient than Miss Therese was, she still wants to keep Hunter from the danger outside. You want to keep your soul above the ocean floor. Hunter also has a desire to find some redemption in this life. The ocean floor is a metaphor for hell and damnation. Hunter wants to find this redemption that the oracles hinted to, and knows that by staying locked away his whole life, he will never set things right. But there's far too many waves to try, far too many ways to die. Although Hunter should stay as far away from the sin and destruction as possible, here illustrated by the ocean, he still has a desire to ride the waves. He wants to flirt with the ideas that he despises, even though he knows it will end in his destruction. This is similar to how at the end of Act 3, Hunter realized that maybe being virtuous isn't always the best thing for him. Maybe lying and being conniving to get ahead is something that everyone must do. This thought is what led him to steal his brother's identity and kill the father. The tragedy of this entire song is that no matter what Hunter does, he has already doomed himself by being someone that he isn't. There was no scenario where he could come home, play house, and find redemption. His redemption is wholly opposed to his inability to face his problems head on. Take a tip from me. I swear I've seen it all before. The fear of what could be will keep you from wanting more. The mother is warning Hunter that his fear of the outside world will keep him from aspiring to be anything more. This warning could also be an attempt to soothe him, however, telling him not to worry because eventually his fears will force him to stay home with her. The mother also mentions that she has seen this all before. She almost certainly has, as this conversation could have been one that she already had with her real son. Maybe he was also scared of the outside world, but still found it in him to go to war. In the end, that didn't really work out for him, though. Held out of love, but gripped too tight, left up, hung in the air. This slight variation of the pre-chorus gives us the image of Hunter being left in the air after what he loves has left him. This is exactly what happened at the beginning of Act 2 with the death of Miss Therese. Putting all of his love and effort into someone else leaves him with nothing when that person is gone. Never could we keep these things from happening. This line starts off the most beautiful section of this song, and dare I say, the whole album. It is also a line that hints towards the tragedy that is Hunter's life. He was never able to keep himself free from the pain. He was also never able to keep those around him safe. In this moment, the mother has died. Hunter is now left alone again. The death of another mother figure has caused him to relapse into the pain that he tried so hard to avoid by burying himself in another's life. Never found a way to keep the love in me. This line is so profoundly sad to me. Hunter was never able to feel the love from others or give it himself. He felt betrayed by Miss Therese when she died and was devastated when he was blindsided by misleading. The love that he wants to feel has never stayed inside of him, and he doesn't understand why. This is also similar to a line off of the Act 1 song, His Hands Matched His Tongue, which said, "The pail has leaks, and even if you put all your water into it, you'll end up with nothing left to drink." Hunter feels that he is the pail in this scenario. Even if he tries to find love from others, he will still end up feeling empty inside. He never could find a way to keep that love inside of himself. Took too long to speak and never stopped to breathe, to breathe. Hunter now reflects on his time with the mother. He wishes that he had had more time with her. As soon as he met her, he never even took the time to breathe. He just loved her and talked to her and went on like nothing was ever wrong. He feels that he took too long to find her and regrets that she wasn't part of his life sooner. He may even feel that he wishes she was his mother all along instead of Miss Therese. Another meaning of this line is that Hunter has spent far too much of his life being a passenger, moved from place to place without taking the time to enjoy his life and think for himself. We read the risks hand in hand, a ruined rest, but now we wake up. The first line hints that maybe the mother knew all along that Hunter wasn't her son. Maybe they both knew the risks of attempting to recreate a life that wasn't theirs, but they didn't care. Maybe Hunter thought he was fooling her, but she knew all along and didn't say anything. This life they lived was a respite from the rest of the world, but it was a ruined rest because it wasn't true. It was a poor recreation of an ideal life. With the mother's death, she and Hunter can finally wake up from this dream and face the afterlife, or the world in Hunter's case. We cut our teeth on foreign plans, then cursed the air, but now we wake up. To cut your teeth on something is to gain your first experience. Hunter and the mother used each other to start their lives of pretending that everything was fine. While the mother is gone, Hunter will continue to attempt to live according to these foreign plans of his stolen identity. Cursing the air is a little more tricky though. I don't know if I fully understand this one. My thought is that they end up cursing the very air that they breathed. Maybe this is a callback to the idea that Hunter took too long to breathe. Hunter took so long to act for himself. His first big action with his new view of the world was to kill his father. Maybe that initial deed cursed this new outlook and is the cause of all of his current problems. At the very end of this song, we get a reprise of The Lake and the River. It is a good nod to how Act 2 and Act 4 start very similarly, with the death of a mother figure. Track 3, Waves. This is one of those Deer Hunter songs that is kind of like an introductory Deer Hunter song. It's one that a lot of people will listen to for the first time and really kind of latch on to. That's how my wife was. This was her favorite Deer Hunter song for a really long time. I actually performed it at the concert we were just at 2 days ago, and it was a ton of fun and super awesome, but let's get into some of the analysis. This song can cause some confusion to listeners and people trying to understand the story, because it tells of Hunter being out on a boat and being crashed into by waves, but I believe this is all metaphorical. Some believe that this song is Hunter literally returning from overseas back to the city, but the mother was already living in the city, so he must have been there already. The idea that his half-brother and mother were living somewhere overseas is also refuted by later plot points in this same album. The waves and ocean that Hunter is talking about in this song are the metaphorical waves that he would be tempted to try back in the old haunt. This song is all about the life so far that he has lived and how he has felt betrayed by those who he thought loved him. I thought that I knew love, but it was just a wave crashing over us. Hunter is referring to his relationship with Miss Leading. In this song, he is essentially singing to her, although he isn't literally doing that, as they have completely lost contact with each other by this point. He thought they were in love, but it ended up being more of an infatuation to Hunter. The reality of this situation is far more complicated. It seemed that Miss Leading really did love Hunter, but was unable to leave her life behind at the dime. Maybe she didn't really see the issue with her work because she views what she does for the men at the dime as something completely foreign to the actual affection that she had for Hunter. But Hunter believes that this affair brought nothing but destruction to them. He cannot see the situation for what it is and is doomed to be bitter about it. Again, he could never find a way to keep the love in him. And in the breaths between the ones we meant to breathe, I had my head under my feet. The second line is just a clever way to say that Hunter was head over heels for Miss Leading. The breaths they meant to breathe and the breaths between is a reference to the Bittersweet 3 Embrace off of Act 2. In that song we got the line, "We fall beneath the sea in the back of our hearts and fail to breathe until we resurface again." Hunter thought that him and Miss Leading were essentially drowning in the love that they had for each other. If you are drowning, you will eventually take a big breath of water, which will only cause you to die faster. Hunter feels that he was essentially inhaling water by pursuing a relationship with Miss Leading, but couldn't help himself because he was head over heels. You knew the way things were, you knew the way they would be. Hunter is asserting that Miss Leading knew better than to get involved with Hunter. She knew that she was a sex worker, and she knew that she would have to continue that life even if she was with Hunter. She should have known better but decided to begin the relationship anyway. We knew exactly how it'd end. Here we have Hunter admitting that he himself knew the relationship would end in heartbreak, that even if he didn't know what she did for work, something inside of him told him that he wouldn't be able to make things work with her. This is the first time that Hunter takes responsibility for his naivety in the relationship. It also shows that maybe he wasn't so naive in the first place and chose to ignore the red flags in order to fuel a relationship that he knew would end badly. Strays on a stale sea, I'll anchor the engine to a canyon far beneath. The sea of Hunter's life is now starting to get choppy and dangerous. He feels that if he can anchor himself, then he will be alright. He chooses to anchor himself to a canyon far below the ocean. I think this is a metaphor for his fear of death and failure being his anchor rather than anything positive. The water rushed up from the boards below, so I started slicking my hair with a kerosene. The water rushing up is a metaphor for Hunter's love and life still suffering, although he tries to anchor himself. Instead of getting out of a bad situation, he is now stuck and can't do much about it. This also feels like a reference to Act 3. He tried to anchor himself by joining the army and quickly found himself in a much worse situation than he had ever been in before. Slicking his hair with a kerosene is a little more tricky to figure out though. I think this can be a metaphor for Hunter's priorities being mixed up when things go bad. Instead of taking action to bail out the boat, he does something to improve his appearance, something wholly paradoxical to his current situation. This metaphor can be seen in his fleeing of the city at the end of Act 2. He didn't face his problems and instead put himself in a worse situation. It can also be seen as him taking on the identity of his brother. Instead of trying to put back his life together or find any meaning in his pain after the war, he focuses on the superficial and decides to live a life that isn't his. This is the best I've got for this line in particular. It has always been really cryptic to me. And I'm preparing for a burial at sea, but I can see the lighthouse. Hunter is getting ready to sink into despair. Maybe he is even considering ending his own life like Mr. Ree did, but he can still see some hope in the future. If we were to take this more literally, he could be burying his mother out at sea, although I don't think that's likely. Yeah, I'm praying that these waters don't take me, because I can see the lighthouse. Even though he has put himself in a bad position, he doesn't want to be destroyed and can still see the light at the end of the tunnel. This is an echo of his sentiments in Act 3. There were times when he considered laying down and dying, but his hope for survival kept him going. I was screaming that the ship was sinking, but you were telling me to just keep drinking. This could be a reference to a couple different things. The first being that Hunter knew his relationship with Misleading was going down, but she insisted that things were fine and wanted to keep going. This can be seen at the end of Act 2, where Hunter angrily confronted her, and she responded thinking that she could save the relationship after everything they had been through. It could also give us the image of Misleading telling Hunter to drink the ocean water in order to keep the boat from sinking. She wanted them to continue harming each other in order to keep their relationship alive, even though she knew it was bad for them. Quartered into parts again, arms and legs at the bottom of the ocean. To be quartered is to have your arms and legs removed. Here it is being used as a metaphor for Hunter sacrificing parts of himself to save what is truly necessary, his core. He is ditching anything that isn't 100% crucial for his survival. In this way, he could be saying that he feels his past deeds have left parts with him down below in some sort of hellish state. He feels like he lost pieces of himself at war, losing his innocence and killing others. He also feels that he has left his capacity to love behind him when he fled the city to get away from his failed relationship of Misleading. And the thing that made it so much harder was the fact that you were someone's daughter. This line is definitely talking about Misleading, just considering that it's talking about a daughter, and there's not many characters that Hunter interacts with that he would be having those feelings about. But I feel it could also apply to everyone that Hunter has wronged in this story. He felt bad about the way that he used Misleading as a sex worker because she is a human being just like everyone else. In that same way, if you're not taking into consideration the daughter part of the line, his leaving the brother to die and taking his identity was also tough for him because he knew the love that the mother had for her son. Maybe killing the father was also difficult because although he was an awful man, he was still someone's son deep down. I knew the way things were, I knew the way they would be, I knew exactly how it'd end. At the end of it all, Hunter is able to see that he was the one who had agency in his life. All of the things that he felt happened to him unfairly were really decisions that he made. If he had been wiser, more understanding, and more loving, perhaps things wouldn't have ended so badly. At the end of this song, we get the sound of a city. It is very similar to the end of the oracles on the Delphi Express in Act 2. Hunter has returned to the city and is ready to start some semblance of a new life now that the mother is dead. Before we get Hunter's experience in the city, however, we go back to the mother's perspective before Hunter returned home from the war. Track 4, At the End of the Earth. Like I said, this track is all about the mother and her experiences waiting for her husband and son to return home from the war. The Deer Hunter story that is told throughout these albums is cryptic, and I never want to imply that my videos are to be taken as gospel. There are things that I theorize about or story beats that I present that might be different from what may have been said at one time at a concert by Casey. After I finish Act 5, I might make a video going over the different interpretations of the story that I haven't covered so far. I think what makes a work of art like this so beautiful is that it can be interpreted in different ways. There is a song near the end of this album that I interpret in a way that is different from the widely accepted canon, but I want these videos to tell a complete story of the acts. This is all to say that I think getting caught up in exactly what has been confirmed can be tricky, especially with this album. This particular song is about the mother, but I think it can also be interpreted as Hunter singing about missing Miss Therese. The reality may be that Casey and the band meant for it to be heard both ways. I'll try to take both of these perspectives into account when looking at the lyrics. I've waited so long just to hear you breathe, that your voice could lead me back from the grave. So here we have the mother sitting at home, waiting to hear from her husband and son. She feels that she has been metaphorically dead since they have left, and can do nothing but hope that they return home safe and alive. This makes Hunter's actions at the end of Act 3 even more messed up. Yes, the father was not a good person, but there was a woman waiting for him back home who would have given anything to see his face one more time. Hunter robbed her of that moment. If we were to look at this song from Hunter's point of view, I imagine this to be Hunter seeing Miss Therese in his dreams. He sees her when he's sleeping at night and feels that her voice can guide him back from the sorrow that he currently feels. From the slowing breath of a sleep like death. This line brings to mind the tale of Sleeping Beauty, who is said to be put into a death-like sleep when she pricked her finger on the cursed spinning wheel, only in this case, we have a sleep like death. It's funny I mentioned Sleeping Beauty here because lately, over the past couple days, my wife and I have been watching a bunch of really old Disney movies like Pinocchio and Alice in Wonderland and Sword in the Stone, because I've been in such a mood to watch those old movies. They're so awesome. But anyway, I imagine that the mother feels herself dying every night as she goes to sleep. This inversion of the phrase casts aside the image of a peaceful sleep and replaces it with the image of a woman being tormented by a lonely life while retaining some hope of being woken up from the nightmare. Again, from Hunter's perspective, he feels that guidance from his deceased mother could cause him to wake up from the metaphorical death that he has suffered after the war, the loss of Miss Leading and the loss of his mother. Now morning comes, but I'm broken-hearted till we meet again at the end of the earth. The mother has awakened from her sleep and now waits broken-hearted on the coast for her husband and son to return on the boat that they left on, the coast being depicted as the end of the earth. For Hunter, morning pulls him awake from his sleep and the dreams that he has had about Miss Therese. He will continue to suffer a broken heart until he meets her again, either at his death or another night when he is dreaming at the end of his consciousness. I never had known such a fragile hurt of a lover's curse. My original thought was that this line was about the mother never having felt the pain of losing a lover before, but I believe the lover's curse is something slightly different. The pain of losing someone is different from the pain of not knowing whether you've lost someone or not. The mother felt cursed, having to wonder every day whether her husband had been killed. I find all this emotional turmoil over the father interesting, as he seemed like someone who would have not had a great relationship with his wife, giving his pride in his story about his experience with Miss Therese at the time. For Hunter, the lover's curse could simply be the pain he still feels over Miss Leading. As soon as he made it to the war, he realized he still loved her. That still hangs over his head, even though he is determined to not fall back into the same trap that he fell into before. And the echoes of you rhyme like a distant verse on forgotten words. The memories of her husband still haunt her while he is away. This could also be a reference to the mother's relationship with Hunter. Even though he looks like her son and maybe acts like him, there is something off in that familiarity. Hunter's memory of his mother is growing more faded with time. He hit a point where he seemed resentful towards her, but now he is back to viewing her as the idealized woman that he saw growing up. The memory of Miss Therese is turning into something that she never really was. I'll keep moving on out of harmony until I see you again at the end of the earth. The mother is resolved to live her life even though her son and husband are gone. Though she continues on, this life that she lives is out of harmony with everyone else. There is always something off inside of her while her family is away. Hunter is in a similar state. He feels that there is something wrong with his existence that has been there since his mother died. He wonders if he will always feel this way until he dies and is finally reunited with her. This line is also interesting, being out of harmony with everybody else. That's something that I've felt before. I went through a kind of a rough breakup when I was in college, and I kind of had this similar feeling to those people where it's like I felt out of harmony, out of step with the rest of the world. Although it had a happy ending to it, because the woman that broke up with me ended up getting married to me, so she's my wife now, and she met some people at the concert. But anyway, a little bit of a sad story for me, but happy ending. And I believe that Hunter and the mother feel this way, like missing that love in your life makes you feel out of harmony with the world, and when they return, everything feels right again. Oh, someday she'll be gone, someday she'll be gone. This is a callback to the refrain near the end of His Hands Matched His Tongue off of Act 1. Its place in this song is to remind Hunter that he always knew his mother would die someday. He also should have figured that this new mother, the mother, would pass away as well. If we were to look at this song from the mother's perspective, this could be seen as her being reminded that she will die someday, potentially before she's reunited with her family. It could also just be a line that draws to reference the similarity between the mother and Miss Therese, having that show up in kind of both those songs about them. I lost my love down below, and I'd swear you'd never know. This line works from both Hunter and the mother's perspective. Each of them are thinking about their situation of them living with each other. They both lost their love, Hunter lost Mystery and the mother lost her son, but you wouldn't know by looking at them. They look like they have each other. So give me death or set me free, just return my soul to me. A really interesting couple of lines that may hint to the mother's dissatisfaction with the situation. She wants to die or be set free of this lie. She wants the soul of her son to return to her and knows this will only happen when she finally passes on. This could also be Hunter having second thoughts about the fake life that he is living. Maybe he wants to be set free from this, but doesn't know how to do it. He wants his own soul to return to him after stealing someone else's. The way that seems the most logical to me, however, is that this line is being sung from the perspective of the son. He wants Hunter to either acknowledge his death or let him disappear from the earth. Something other than having Hunter steal his soul and masquerade as him. He wants Hunter to return his soul to him. And with that, we have the end of the song. This is another great song that offers a ton of cryptic clues as to how our characters are feeling. It sheds a lot of insight into the nasty side of what Hunter is doing. His stealing of the brother's identity was opportunistic by him, but it has had a major effect on those who loved the son. This song is also great musically. It flows super well, and the callback to his hands matched his tongue is super well done without feeling overbearing. There's also a piano melody at the beginning of the second verse that moves the song along while also sounding so haunting. It's a great song. Track 5, Remembered. It's time for more cryptic lyrics. This song has a lot of strange phrases that paint the picture of Hunter reflecting on his life. This is actually genius in my opinion because it gives us the perspective of someone who is trying to understand who Hunter is. Anyone in this story would be confused as to who he is given his stolen identity. The way that this song drops cryptic clues feels like we are detectives piecing together a mystery, like we are discovering that this man isn't who he says it is. It is also a slower song that is greatly needed in the beginning of the album. It drops the traditional band instruments and goes for pure orchestration. It's a good song to flex Casey's skills as a composer and makes the full orchestra feel well worth it. Left your face on a map. Well, this is already getting confusing and we are only at the first line of the song. The way that I see this song is that we have Hunter recounting his story and his life and his journey back to the town. He is walking down the path of the river that leads him back to the city again. As he goes, he spreads the ashes of the mother along the path. He is literally leaving her on the map as he makes his journey to the city. This is another parallel to Act 2, where he made the journey to the city in The Lake and the River. The tone of this song articulates that while the stories of Act 2 and 4 are mirroring each other, the tone is very different. Hunter is much more calm this time and not quite as angry. He has learned a thing or two since the first journey to the city and won't make the same mistakes, or at least, so he thinks. Sturdy up boulders and loosen the river to fork where it finds the best passage. These lyrics suggest to me that Hunter is now seeing life a little more optimistically. He has sturdied himself and feels that he is on more solid ground. This is most likely because he is going to the city as the son and not as himself. The river has always acted as both a bad thing, the path towards destruction, but also salvation, as the current leads away from the city. Hunter now realizes this and decides to be opportunistic about how he views the river. He will make the best decisions for him and cheat fate in order to find a good life. While the river brings both good and evil, Hunter thinks that he can find only the good. This will become a theme in Hunter's life. He may walk into undesirable situations, but now he is optimistic that he can turn things in his favor. This is a broad departure from how he has looked at his life up until now. Now, Hunter is determined to actively shape his own destiny rather than relying on the fates to guide him through life. Met your life before us, left them your necklace, and brandished your ashes. Hunter reflects on himself, discovering things in life for himself. Him meeting Misleading and getting acquainted with the diamond is an example of Hunter meeting the life that Mystery led before he was even born. In the same way, he also met the mother, the life that the son lived before Hunter ever met him. Brandishing the ashes of the mother, Hunter walks towards the town. He scatters them as he walks. The necklace line is interesting. I've read that there is some connection with the necklace that both Mystery and Misleading wore. This could reference that. I also interpret this line as Hunter leaving the son's dog tags with the ashes of the mother. He is finally returning the two after stealing the son's life. It would also make sense that Hunter would throw the dog tags into the river to try to forget what he has done. Like stars peeking out in the gloam, envy. As Hunter scatters the ashes in the water, they shine and look like the stars in the night sky. The word gloam refers to the time of night right after sunset, where the sky is still light, but the sun is now gone. Hunter sees the mother as someone who has passed on and found something better after death. There is still light for her. By all accounts, she was a good woman, and Hunter is jealous of her position in the universe. He feels that damnation is what waits for him after this life. In that way, he is envious of her. Every choice that you made, lost before cause and effect found in Babel. These lines call back to Hunter's deterministic view of life. He feels that every choice he ever made wasn't really his, that it was all determined at the start. Babel can be seen as the original city of the developed world. Hunter's path wasn't determined at his birth, but far before that, at the dawn of civilization. Like pieces of puzzles belong shackled. Hunter sees his choices as being pieces to a picture that he can't change, like how puzzle pieces can only fit together with other specific puzzle pieces. Hunter sees that his life has been destined to play out the way that it has, that every piece and sorrow was essential. Gave myself to the war. This is an obvious callback to Hunter's time in World War I and Act 3. The phrasing is notable because he says that he gave himself to the war. This is reflective of how he eventually became a killer through his actions at the end of the album. He became a part of the war that before he thought himself as above or separate from. Damned if I didn't demand that they sing such a sensible bearing of you, mystery. These lines seem to call back to He Said He Had a Story. In that song, the story of mystery was laid bare for Hunter to see. Another interpretation is that Hunter feels that by killing the father, he demanded that the soldiers have respect for his mother. He feels that some justice was served. The word mystery is used to describe Hunter examining the state of his own future. He doesn't know what will happen to him, and he views himself as one big mystery. The word is also pronounced the same as Mystery, his mother, the woman that he demanded they sing the sensible bearing of. The flame might be gone, but the fire remains. This is the phrase that pops up constantly in these albums. Hunter is the fire to Mystery's flame. Given he is remembering her in this song, it makes sense why this phrase would pop into his head. Though he tries to be someone else, he will always be the fire. And I'm stuck on a path to my own ruin. Hunter can see that the path he is taking will still lead to his eventual destruction. But it seems that he has made some peace with this. He knows he is heading to the city where things went wrong for him, but he has some notion that things might be different. Calling back to The Old Haunt, Hunter seems to be rejecting the idea that the fear of what could be will keep him from wanting more in life. His desire to want more for himself now outweighs his fear of the big bad world. Did you see me behind the wheel? Hunter now questions whether the mother knew if he wasn't her son. If she did, then maybe her advice to him was sinister. If she didn't, then maybe her desire to keep him away from the city was some advice that he should have heeded. Either way, he is now stuck on this path. The phrasing of being behind the wheel is also a callback to Hunter's time as a driver for misleading. He is now the driver of his own destiny, and he heads into town to see what the world has in store for him. Also, being behind the wheel was like the last time he was behind the wheel, bad stuff happened. The same thing might happen this time. I always viewed this song as the end point to the first part of this particular story in the album. From here on, everything happens mostly in chronological order, and we get a pretty clear picture of what the events in the story are. It is a great slow song to lull us into comfort before the chaos that unfolds in the next song. Track 6, A Night on the Town. Our next song is the longest one on this album by far. I believe it is the second longest song in the acts, just behind The Lake and the River. This song sees Hunter return to the city and immediately be picked up by a group of men. These men are the friends of the son. They see that he is home from the war, and they all go out to celebrate. Hunter's plan of assuming the son's identity is paying off. It seems the son has a group of friends and is well liked by those in the city. I've been misplaced in so many ways, broken battlegrounds, hiding veils of delicate deceit, yet here I breathe. Another look back at Hunter's life so far. He has been put in so many bad situations and gone through so much sorrow and pain. He has been lied to by those that he cares about, but through it all, he is still standing. He can't believe that this is all for nothing. This look at his own life is convincing Hunter that maybe he is meant for something greater. Maybe anyone else would have given up or died already with his tortured past, but he is seeing that he was able to rise above and continue on. This confidence is somewhat misplaced, given his stealing of the sun's identity, however. Teeth still gleam from holy water, while millions of lambs migrate to the slaughter. Here we have a look at Hunter's growing disdain for the pimp and the priest. He is the man who runs both the church and the dime. He convinces the men that they are pardoned from their sins for a price, and then ushers those men back to the dime at night so they can sin once more. Hunter finds this business to be wholly detestable, especially now that he knows how bad his mother's experience at the dime was. He's beginning to see the pimp and the priest as the biggest villain in his life, much like how he saw the father to be beyond saving in Act 3. My head in a bag and my hands are bound to my feet and voices sing. These lines seem to be a reference to the friends of the sun abducting Hunter before they bring him with them for a night on the town. It is a friendly hazing ritual that they have, similar to something you might see at a bachelor's party the night before a wedding. Were we erased like common thieves, tossed in a cell to feast with the fleas, all because we never had written a word? So a couple of things going on in these lines. They seem to be a general statement from the friends of the sun. Perhaps they too went off to war and now feel that they haven't been treated like heroes upon their return, like they were promised when they set off to start the fight of World War I. The young soldiers of World War I were referred to as the lost generation because they had their youth and innocence robbed from them by going off to war so young. These men feel that instead of being treated well upon their return, they were cast aside like common criminals. All of this is because they never had written a word. This line can refer to a couple different things. One interpretation is that the friends are asking Hunter why he didn't seem eager to see them. Did he forget about them simply because they never wrote him during the war? I also see it as the soldiers never writing home to their families and thus being forgotten. To write something down is also another way to describe someone cementing their legacy. Maybe the actions these soldiers took in the war were not meaningful enough to find themselves remembered in the history books. What will I see tonight in these eyes, and what will I know when the morning comes? Hunter now questions what is about to happen to him. Will the friends end up killing him? Will he learn things he never wanted to? Will they catch on to the fact that he isn't who he says he is? Once again, his fate is hanging in the air and he doesn't have control over the situation. Must we remind of exchanges existing so long ago? This line, like many lines in The Deer Hunter, has a dual meaning to it. The first is the friends being somewhat confused that Hunter can't seem to remember all of the times that the sun shared with the friends. They're trying to reminisce, but Hunter isn't the sun and can't contribute to any of the conversations about their time together before the war. This could also be a request from Hunter, though. Maybe the friends are trying to remember the good times they had together and keep bringing up memories. In an attempt to steer the conversation away from the memories that he doesn't have, Hunter encourages them to live in the moment and not dwell in the past. Would we arrive at agreeable musings, sentimental or just confusing? The friends are trying to have a conversation with Hunter, but things are off. They are trying to get him to open back up and reminding him of old times, but Hunter is just confused. They appear to give him the benefit of the doubt, though, and maybe assume that he is suffering from shell shock. We lost what we had, but we took it back. This is a reference to Hunter losing his family in Act 2 and then stealing the sun's family in Act 3. He thinks that he took that forgotten life back, when really he just replaced it with something new. This could also be the friends saying that they lost their rowdy, partying life during the war, but now they have taken that back with them for this night on the town. Friends in the gutter enjoy one another. The friends seem to know that they are on the bottom of the totem pole in society. They are probably all broke and suffering from PTSD. Their need to drink and forget the horrors of the war just does even more to turn the rest of the town against them, as they do not understand what they are going through. They feel that the only ones who understand them are the men who also served in the war. The only people they can associate with are their fellow soldiers, and they are unable to reintegrate back into normal society. Just give yourself to the dust and the dirt where you stand. While Hunter seems to think that he can make something more for himself after the war, masquerading as the sun, his friends encourage him to join them in their life of debauchery and sin. They have given themselves to the earth, but Hunter believes he can rise above all of that. I'm not who you think I am, and even if I thought you'd known, I never would have told you so." Hunter is now thinking to himself. For a moment he considers coming clean, but then acknowledges that even if the friends knew he wasn't the son, he would still never come clean. This is the life that he has stolen, and it is the one that he will stick with even if those around him are suspicious and know what's going on. And more alarming, "I would have done the very same, would have stole more than your name, would have cursed and brought the world on your shoulders." These lines are a little tricky for me, but I read them as an admission that even if Hunter knew his plans wouldn't have fooled anyone, he still would have gone through with it. Maybe the act of stealing the son's identity was less to become someone new, but to leave behind his old life. Him stealing more than the son's name is an admission that the life he stole isn't solely him putting on a new name, but stealing all of the personal relationships that the son had as well. He has fully taken a life that doesn't belong to him. He has brought the world on the shoulders of the son because he now knows that any bad decision he makes will reflect poorly on the son's legacy. Hunter is notorious for his bad decisions, and now the son will have to pay for them, powerless to stop him. "I was in the wrong place at the right time." This is another line that feels like the tipping point of the album. The music builds up to this moment and then drops back to a beautiful orchestral piece that sounds straight out of Lord of the Rings and The Shire. This line is a play on being in the right place at the right time. Instead of being in the perfect position, Hunter acknowledges that he wasn't where he should have been. He never should have gone to war, but was fortunate enough to be there with the son when he died, allowing him to steal his identity. In that place, Hunter was in the wrong place at the right time because he took advantage of a situation in a way that is tainted or poisoned in some way. There was nothing noble or correct about his actions, and he knows that to be true now. "And what's the worst I'd see by giving myself to the earth below me? Not knowing how far I'd fall by casting away the ordinary." Here we have Hunter again contemplating what might be waiting for him after this life. He wonders if he died now, would he be sent to hell, or would something else await him? His casting away the ordinary is the act of leaving his mortal body. This could also be Hunter considering joining his friends in their life of debauchery. Maybe giving himself to the dust and dirt where he stands would be what's best for him. Maybe trying to make something of himself is silly when the world has done so much to beat him down already. "Just how long can I stay in illusions formed here long before me? And how long can I breathe this stolen breath here underneath?" Hunter contemplates how long he can keep this ruse up. He knows that someone will find him out eventually and seems to decide that he will keep it up as long as he can. The act of living a stolen life must be incredibly draining on a person. I suppose we should also consider whether Hunter would have been better off being himself. At this point, he hasn't gained all that much by being someone he isn't. He got to spend some time with the mother, but she ended up dying all the same. He has found a new group of friends, but he can't seem to find the flow of the conversation and doesn't seem to enjoy being around them. He has a newfound confidence, but that is something that he could have gained while being himself. He never needed to steal the son's identity. The next portion of this song is a triumphant one that hints at Hunter's determination to rise above his circumstances again. After a while, though, it slows down and we get a familiar piano melody, the one that we heard on the Bittersweet One, "Meeting Misleading," and then we get these lyrics. "There's that subtle smile that did me in, she moves." Hunter has just seen Misleading. Maybe he sees her in front of the dime, maybe she's at the bar that they are drinking at. Either way, Hunter is immediately captivated by her. The music of this section is really great and feels like an out-of-body experience. "In agony reminds where I've been." The memory of Misleading brings Hunter agony. He remembers all of the pain that was caused the first time they met, but he still seems intrigued by her nonetheless. "She breathes, I'd never let this happen again." I've got conflicting information as to who is saying this line, but I think it's coming from Hunter. If it is coming from Misleading, then we know that she recognizes him, but I think she hasn't noticed him, and Hunter is telling himself that he can't let himself get caught back up in what he went through in Act 2. "Where's your heart? Mimicking the patriarch. She's naive, blissfully." For a brief moment, Hunter considers sleeping with Misleading at the dime. His heart is mimicking that of his father's at this moment. He knows that she is naive to who he really is and thinks that he could maybe enjoy a night with her with no strings attached. Hunter seems to not follow through with this plan and instead continues to get more and more drunk as the night goes on. He knows that she is back in the town, but she is still naive as to his presence. It is an important moment for Hunter because choosing to pursue her would cause him to have to give up his fake identity, and he's not ready to do that yet. The outro to this song is a reprise of the melody found in Mustard Gas, only this time it's on the piano and much softer. I don't have any solid reason as to why this is in here, other than it being a cool callback to Act 3. Maybe it is a simple moment of PTSD for Hunter. Maybe this night on the town has reminded him of his time back in the war, and he is reeling from the memories of the time he came face to face with the mustard gas. This song is really great, and it is one that is often regarded as one of the best on the album. It is a musical journey that stands side by side with The Lake and the River as a song that impresses by continually switching things up. It also serves as another example of Act 4 mirroring Act 2. Track 7, Is There Anybody Here? This next song takes place after Hunter's night on the town. He is now wandering around in a drunken stupor and reflecting more on his life. He has decided not to pursue misleading and seems to have split off from his group of friends. I lay my body down to rest my weary head. Here we have Hunter laying down to sleep. I believe this is most likely him laying down on the side of the road. He is drunk and alone. This calls back to the line in Evicted, where Misleading said that she was sleeping softly curbside. Now it is Hunter who sleeps curbside. I think I left someone there. I left myself for dead. Hunter is thinking about when he left the sun to die. Now that he has switched places with him, Hunter can say that he left himself to die in the war, since it was the sun who returned home. I also think this could be alluding to Hunter having an out-of-body experience. While his body is asleep on the side of the road, his mind is left to wander and examine the state of his life and whether he has made the right decisions. So is there anybody here who can tell me who I am, or at least where I have been? Hunter doesn't really know who he is. He wants to find someone to confirm that he is the son, that his stolen identity is now his completely, but he can't get that confirmation since no one truly knows his situation. Him asking for someone to identify who he really is also a bit of dramatic irony, as he has tried so hard to hide his identity, but now wishes that someone would discover him. These lines could also be a part of a PTSD episode as well. He literally does not know who he is and can't remember where he's at. He might be thinking he's back in the war and needs someone to bring him back to reality. Because I fear I'm lost and I cannot be found again. Hunter is worried that he has gone too far and will not be able to find himself. This also plays into his PTSD. He can't remember who he is, and he's worried that he might never remember. This is especially true considering his stolen identity. Maybe he fears he will forget about his ruse and give away who he truly is to those around him. I left my soul exposed to frail hands who hold my fate up in the air. Here we have Hunter referencing the oracles. Maybe he is somewhat regretful of the fact that he accepted their help in the first place and wishes he was in control of his own fate. The oracles don't seem to be able to change the course of history, so Hunter is still in charge of his own destiny, but maybe he doesn't see it that way. And through their fingers fall the meaning of it all, down to the floor it goes. Hunter seems to find the advice that the oracles give just as cryptic as we do, which is very comforting coming from somebody who makes a lot of videos analyzing these lyrics. They are kind of hard to understand. He could never really grasp the meaning of what they say, and he is upset at this confusion. In this way, maybe his decision to reject their advice at the end of Act 2 was born from ignorance rather than spite. Maybe he didn't hear them well the first time when they told him not to flee the city. Waking in the afternoon, a captive in a passive tomb. Hunter wakes up on the side of the road during the day. He feels disoriented and wrong about the state of his life. If he isn't literally waking up in this line, then it could simply be a way to express Hunter's disorientation. He can't get the timing right and is going against nature. He feels that he is held captive to a life that he has made for himself. While he doesn't need to do as much to keep his identity secret, he does look just like the sun after all. He feels that this identity is merely a tomb where he has buried his true self back during the war. Moments turn to long Decembers, stoking fires from dying embers. The flow of time is starting to distort for Hunter. I think this is to illustrate his PTSD even more. Mere moments of recollection of his experience in the war are stretched out to cold, frigid months inside his head. Hunter is trying everything he can to keep himself from despair. He is stoking the fire, which is himself, from the dying embers of a life that isn't his. He He wants to leave his old life behind, but he still feels an obligation to be the fire to Miss Therese' flame, and he can't let that go. I try to move a limb, but there's a disconnect within. Hunter seems to be feeling that this body isn't really his. This could also be a reference to sleep paralysis, which is a phenomena where your mind is woken up from sleep, but your body hasn't, so you sit there paralyzed and unable to move. I actually experience sleep paralysis about once a month, and it is not a pleasant experience at all, although I feel that mine isn't quite so severe from others for a reason that I'll explain here in a second. A devil in the alchemy, a phantom staring back at me, it's you. Hunter describes his inability to move as a devil inside of him as he sees the figure of the sun staring at him. This is another part of sleep paralysis. People see figures in their rooms when they are unable to move. This is because their minds are still partially dreaming. I personally don't experience this part of sleep paralysis. I typically feel it while I'm fully dreaming. I become aware of my body and I can't move it. Then I wake up and still can't move it for a minute until it finally goes away. I don't see spooky things while I'm awake though, it's only happened once. This line could also refer to Hunter's new daily life. He lives as the sun, and every time he looks in the mirror he sees the image of a dead man, the son that died on the battlefield and Hunter himself, who is presumed dead in the war. A pain I simply can't express, from troubles I have long repressed, and then there's you. The pain that Hunter feels inside is one that he can't express to others because doing so would give away his true identity. He has repressed those troubles but can still feel them clawing at him. His plan to escape his old life didn't really work as well as he wanted. At the end of this song, he either sees someone or is thinking of someone. I think the you is two people. The first is misleading. He is remembering her again and can't seem to get her out of his head. The second person is another woman who approaches him after finding him passed out in the street. We'll talk more about her in the next song. Overall, this song is really awesome. It has one of the coolest guitar solos and really reminds me of something Pink Floyd would make. I actually hadn't listened to much Pink Floyd before I got into the Deer Hunter, and listening to the album I Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd was so cool because you could clearly hear the Deer Hunter influence, and I guess the influence that Pink Floyd has in the Deer Hunter in that way. But I would really recommend going to listen to that because it's a really great album, and you'll see a lot of influence, especially in this specific song. Track 8, The Squeaky Wheel. This next song's title calls back to a line found on the Act 2 song, Smiling Swine. As I explained in that song, the phrase comes from the term, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. It is an expression that means that the loudest problems are the ones that are usually dealt with first. This song also mirrors what happened in Smiling Swine. In both songs, we have Hunter being woken up by someone and being thrust into an unfamiliar situation. While in Smiling Swine, Hunter was woken up by the pimp and the priest. In this song, he is awoken by a new character. There's my suitor, struggling to find his footing, lost, awoken alone after sleeping off inebriation. Hunter has been awoken by the fiancée. She is the woman who was engaged to the son before he went off to war. She has found Hunter asleep on the side of the road and is disappointed to see how far he has fallen. Again, Hunter and the son must look so similar if the fiancé can't tell them apart. Awoken alone is again another line that comes from Smiling Swine. It wasn't until I sat down to start making this video that I realized just how much Act 2 mirrors Act 4. I guess Act 4 mirrors Act 2. I guess that's why it is a rebirth and reprise. In a lot of ways, it is reprise or interpolation of Act 2. I forget that I've been holding my tongue for so long, 'cause we had a run, so don your Sunday best and wake up. The first line hints that maybe the fiancé regrets the way that she greeted Hunter. She is realizing that she is talking to her future husband for the first time in years and should try to start things off on the right foot. She reminds the confused Hunter that they have been in a relationship and tries to get him ready to head to church. You went missing, never mind the life I was wishing for, 'cause you'd had enough, but at least you got enough to fake it. Her reference to the son going missing is most likely referring to the time that Hunter spent with the mother. The fiancé knows that her lover went off to war, but she expected him to return with the rest of his friends, and instead it took quite a while for her to see him again. She then speculates that maybe this is because the son had enough of her. Maybe he wanted to end the relationship. It seems that Hunter, in a desperate bid to continue living his lie, reassures the fiancé that he wants to be with her. She can tell that he isn't sincere in his declarations of love, but she doesn't seem to be too bothered by that for now. I'll keep smiling, optimistically denying what I feared the most, that you disappeared and leave me wondering. It seems that the fiancé is starting to realize that something is off with her lover. She can sense that something is wrong, but she hasn't quite figured it out yet. Her suspicion is merely that the son didn't return back to her because he was done with the relationship and didn't want to tell her. I feel that I might be harping on this point too much, but it is seriously messed up that Hunter has stolen the son's life. All of his loved ones aren't offered any closure by this weird game that Hunter is playing, and it just serves to hurt those around him. It's all part of his transformation into what he despises. He hated the double life that Misleading led, and now he is living his own double life. Was I just a playful pawn, a trophy you had won? Someone who could lift you when you're low? The fiancé starts to look back on their relationship and questions everything. She thinks that she might have just been a trophy for the son. Maybe he only wanted a woman to prove himself to the world. Maybe he loved the chase of getting her but doesn't care for her now that they have a relationship. Maybe she was just around for him so he could feel better about himself. She'll never truly know the answer to those questions due to the son being dead, and there are also questions that Hunter is unable to answer himself. While he and the son share superficial similarities, their lives are actually quite different. Innocents to prey upon or allies in the sun? Heaven sent or just hell-bent on love? More questions from the fiancé. Was she a naive, innocent person who was preyed upon by the sun, similar to how Hunter feels he was treated by Misleading? Or were they truly a team that was meant to take on the world together? Was the relationship one ordained by the heavens, or were they both just looking for love and unable to see past those blind ambitions? Again, we'll never know, but Hunter has to know that what he is doing is wrong, given how this situation is similar to what he went through in Act 2 with Misleading. Darling liar, always running through the briar. What? The cuts aren't enough? Just an aggravation you'd forget. These lines are really interesting because they are both about Hunter and Misleading. I think in the actual story, they are what the fiancé is saying to Hunter, but you could read them just as well as being about Hunter reflecting on his relationship with Misleading, or her doing some self-reflection. The fiancé is calling Hunter out for lying to her and not being able to remember certain things about their relationship. She wonders why he constantly puts himself through the humiliation of being caught in a lie, rather than just being truthful with her. From Misleading's point of view, she sees herself as constantly putting herself through pain while she works at the dime. Though she dislikes her work, she seems unable to stop and sees the painful nights at the dime as something she can simply forget. Like promised patience, politic alleviations of what I should have known was a sign of future expiration. Promised patience is what the fiancé must have given to the son when he went off to war. She said she would wait for him. Now she sees Hunter trying to give slippery answers to her questions about their past, much like a politician avoids a tough question. Now she sees these half answers as a sign that the relationship will end up failing. These lines could also hint at the fact that maybe the son was less sure about the relationship than it seems. Maybe he too was fleeing her when he went off to war, and now she's kicking herself for not realizing that. Back to Misleading, she can see that her relationship with Hunter was doomed from the start, as she was unable to leave her life with a dime. She tried to keep him in the dark as long as possible and make things work, but they all came crashing down in the end. So will I marry a myth, or is there room for second chances? It seems the fiancé knows there is something seriously wrong. The man she is talking to is not the same man that went off to war. She seems to be rationalizing this as some sort of PTSD, rather than it being a completely different person. She still contemplates marrying him, though. Even if he is just a shell of his former self, she did promise to be with him. Beyond that, she still feels like she can salvage this relationship. She thinks she can get her old fiancé back with a little time and effort. The lust lives in the dark and may never show. This is a really great line that I interpret as the fiancé knowing that the passion the son has for her is buried deep inside of him, but may never truly resurface. This is doubly ironic as the son literally lives in the dark now that he is dead and buried. That lust will never show. Well, the battle ended years ago. Now this is how you say hello? Well, where'd you take your leave? Or would you rather keep another trick up your sleeve? It seems that the war has been over for a long time. Hunter spent years with the mother. The fiancé is asking for answers. She wants to know where he was all this time and why he never returned to her. She then asks if he will lie to her or not come clean, if he wants to keep yet another truth to himself instead of trusting her with it. Do you remember love? How you said you never really could feel enough? These lines are really interesting because I believe they have a double meaning like a lot of the lines on this album. Perhaps the fiancé is referring to a time when the son told her that his love for her was endless. He could never feel enough love for her. He was always feeling more and more. This line also relates back to the old haunt, where Hunter said that he could never keep the love in him. He could also never feel enough love for the opposite reason as the sun. This line must have surely shaken him when he heard it. Well, did you give it a try? Why don't you open your eyes and let me know? It seems that the fiancé is leaving the fate of their relationship in Hunter's hands. I think at this point she has realized that something is seriously wrong. She may know that Hunter isn't the son, but is willing to be with him in order to replace what she has lost. What will happen to us? Do you think we'll make the cut? The fiancé is wondering what will happen to this sham of a relationship. She knows the son is gone, but has faith that she may be able to kindle a relationship with a man who looks strikingly like her lost lover. Should we give it a try? Give an eye for an eye? Give ourselves to the lie? She wants to try to make this thing work. She's willing to live the lie with Hunter. I find the phrasing of give an eye for an eye to be interesting as well, almost as if pursuing this relationship is an act that will hurt both of them in equal measure. After all of that, Hunter decides to go along with the plan. Maybe he can make something work with the fiancé. Besides, to reject her would maybe expose himself to the rest of the world as a fraud. This song is really great and has such a good string backbone to it. It's a song that flows really well and is one of those tracks on the album that just screams Act 4 to me. Plus, it has a really nice, cool, direct lead into the next track on the album. If you remember, the fiancé was waking Hunter up to go to church with her. Now, they both arrive at the church. Track 9, the bittersweet 4 and 5, the congregation and the sermon in the silt. The start of this song sees Hunter walking into the church with the fiancé. He quickly realizes that the pastor who is getting ready to give the sermon is the pimp and the priest. Hunter is worried because he knows the priest could recognize him as an imposter. They come in crowds to hear him speak, and he will greet them in a smile that sticks like Vaseline. The priest is incredibly popular in this town. He commands an audience that reveres him. The use of the term Vaseline here is interesting because while Vaseline does stick to stuff, it is also a slippery substance. The pimp and the priest is a figure living a double life. While his smile might seem warm and welcoming, it is truly a disguise that he can use to hide the other life as the pimp. These lines are sung by Hunter. Maybe he is warning the fiancé about the pimp and the priest, or maybe he's just thinking these things to himself. So do your best to keep your distance. In this instance, you're a stranger in the weeds. Some things are better left unseen. Hunter is doing his best to keep away from the priest in order to not be recognized by him. He wants to blend in as any other stranger. He thinks his double life is better left unseen by the priest, but also, Hunter knows that some things are left unseen or unspoken. His mother, Miss Therese, taught him as much while he was growing up. Commanding listeners to believe, manipulations of narrations, Anno Domini. The priest commands his audience. The language used to describe him is forceful, like he talks to the believers in the same way that he talks to the men and women of the dime. He also manipulates scripture for his own gain. The phrase Anno Domini is a Latin phrase that means the year of our Lord. It's where the acronym AD comes from when used to describe the time period after the birth of Jesus Christ. Not with a whimper, but a bang, he'll take the stage and leave their jaws upon the floor, begging for more. Priests and other holy men are supposed to be meek and humble. This priest is none of those things. He sees this sermon as a chance to perform for a crowd, and the crowd eats it all up. They're being served a twisted version of the gospel that is taught to appeal to men rather than God. So Father, won't you tend your flock and save us now? Won't you save us now? Come and save us. These lines have a double meaning. The first is that they are being sung by the congregation who is asking for the priest, the father, to come out and give his sermon. They are done waiting and are ready to hear what he has to say. The second interpretation is that these lines are a cry from Hunter. He wants God to save this crowd from the evils of the priest. Hunter's desire to save the people of the city from the pimp and the priest will be a big part of the story going forward. With those lines, we enter into the next part of the song. The music picks up and gets more peppy and upbeat. While the actual chords being used are rather somber, they are twisted into something light and fun, very similar to what the priest is doing with the Word of God. I hear you're looking for God. Well, I can show you the way just as long as you can pay, but the price is going up. Here we have the priest giving his sermon, which reads more like a sales pitch. His style of delivery when talking about the gospel is exactly the same as when he's presenting the ladies of the dime to the lustful men. The crowd seems to love it either way. We also see his true objective in all of this. He simply wants to make more money. He is offering to lead the people of the city towards God, but only if they pay him a good price for it. Again, he's acting like a salesman, telling them to act soon or the price will continue to rise. And like a prayer to the air, we deliver you to glory, pay up. The way that the priest delivers the people to glory is just like a prayer to the air. It's meaningless. The prayer isn't reaching God, it's being said to no one. The priest's method of offering absolution to people is completely useless, and the people still pay anyway. I swear you'll get what you need, and we can lead you to salvation with the right denomination. The priest continues to promise that he can get them the gospel that they need. The next line is a great play on words as well. Denomination can be used to refer to the branch of Christianity that he preaches, or the numerical value on a bill. More slippery wording from the man with the smile that sticks like Vaseline. It all lies in your hands, or in your pocketbooks to be more demanding. A big part of typical Christianity is to leave your life in the hands of God. The priest insists that the fates of the people lie in their own hands, another perversion of the gospel. After that, he slips in that their fate actually lies in their pocketbooks, where their money is. Don't you tread too close to the line this time. This line that is being referred to is something that comes up in a later song on this album. It could also be a warning from the priest to the audience to not cross him. He is someone who claims to have power and authority from God, and he will punish those who oppose him. Don't get led too close to the light this time. You went far too close to the line this time, the line this time. The priest is actively warning his congregation not to get too close to God and salvation. He wants them far enough away so they will keep coming back every Sunday in order to line his pockets. He needs the men far enough away from the light in order to commit more sins at the dime that they can then pay him to be forgiven for. I believe that the last line is actually from Hunter. He has never liked the pimp and the priest, but this time he has gone too far. Hunter sees the priest's awful plan in front of him and is now determined to take him down at all costs. Hey kid, get a god. Hey kid, get a god. Lots of haze there. This is a genius reuse of the line used back in The Bittersweet 3 Through the Dime. Back then, the pimp urged Hunter to get a job as a driver for misleading. He also urged the woman there to get a job at working for him. Now the pimp and the priest urges the crowd to find their god and start paying off their sins to the priest. This might be my favorite lyrical reuse in the entire catalog of The Deer Hunter. It's just genius. We also get the same musical motif that was used in The Bittersweet 2 Through the Dime. This is all to reinforce the parallels between the way that the pimp and the priest acts in both of his establishments. So you committed a sin? Well, we can rid that with a remedy. The bidding starts at 70, sold to one and all. Now get your hands ready to make a withdrawal. More gross salesmanship from the priest. Go figure. You've got no other way to find what you want. If it's a saving that you're craving and your confidence is fading, be calm, the doctor's in. The priest has a monopoly on religion in the city. There is no one else to go but him if the people want to be absolved of their sins. They don't have the confidence to feel forgiven through their own repentance and need to see the priest in order to feel like they've obtained that forgiveness. The line, "the doctor is in," is also clever because the pimp and the priest is depicted and represented by the classic plague doctor look of back in the Black Plague. They wore those creepy masks with the giant beak-looking things on them. It's just a cool little reference to that fact. I got the cure because I know where you've been. The priest knows how to forgive these people of their sins because he knows exactly where they have been, the dime. He is the one who is enticing the men to sleep with the woman there. This probably serves to make him seem even more godlike to the congregation because he seems to be able to discern the sins of these men. They don't realize that he is also the pimp. If you want to get up, reserve a room on high, put your coins in my hat and don't ask why. This is the ethos of the priest. If the people in the congregation want salvation, they have to pay the priest. It's fitting that these are the last new lyrics in the song because they really capture the essence of what the pimp and the priest is doing here. And that's it for this song. This is one of my personal favorites. I always get really into The Deer Hunter in the fall, and this song just sounds like Halloween. It is one of those that I feel appeals to a lot of non-Deer Hunter fans as well, since it has just such a fun, distinct, unique sound to it. Track 10, The Bittersweet 6, Abandoned. This next song on the album is the last in the Bittersweet series. It is a hauntingly beautiful song all about Hunter and the pimp and the priest reflecting on their double lives and what they are meant to do in this world. Strangers in the soil, so hide your enmity. Hunter is still surrounded by those of the church and has to hide his obvious disdain for the priest. He thinks about confronting him now, but he feels he can do more damage if he sits back and maintains his illusion. He has fooled so many people into believing that he is the son, why couldn't he fool the pimp and the priest? This line could also be interpreted as the priest having to keep up his facade as a man of faith while he preaches to the strangers in the crowd. He is potentially bitter towards God or doesn't believe in God at all, but he has to hide all of that in order to keep his grift going. Are you living up to ghosts, or does virtue disagree? Hunter questions whether his actions thus far live up to the sense of morality that Mystery and his mother tried to instill in him. He also wonders whether the person he is lives up to the ghost of the son. The son seemed to be well liked. Hunter wants to live up to that image. Use your gifts for good, rescue them from greed. The first part of this line could refer to the priest. He should be using his power to convince others and put on a show for good. He could be a great priest if he actually preached the word of God instead of trying to make money. The line as a whole also refers to Hunter. He has been given the gift of a second life, and he feels that he needs to use this to rescue those around him from the greed of the priest. He feels that it is his responsibility to save the city. This is somewhat remarkable, as the city has been pretty bad to Hunter, all things considered. He shouldn't feel indebted to it, but something inside him wants to save them from the pimp and the priest. Maybe he sees it as a revenge for Mystery's terrible life. Maybe he doesn't want anyone to go through what she and Misleading did. Find a proper voice as a thistle in the wreath. A thistle is a small weed with sharp points on it, very similar to a thorn. Hunter feels that his proper place in the city is a thorn in the side of the pimp and the priest. He wants to inconvenience him in any way possible. The priest could also be the thistle in the wreath. He is something that doesn't belong inside of something beautiful. His perversion of the church is an affront to the rest of the Christian world. Move them to truth, far from ruin, and barricade the myth I made, the wolves at bay. Hunter wishes to reveal the pimp and the priest scheme to the rest of the town. He feels this is the only way to save their souls from damnation. In doing so, he hopes to present himself as the son and reinforce the stolen life that he has. He wants to be known as the son rather than Hunter. The pimp and the priest also wishes to barricade his own double life. He doesn't want his secret to get out and feels that he needs to keep the wolf, Hunter, at bay. He can sense the tables are turning and needs to think of an ace in the hole. I know that history fades and sympathy dithers away. Hunter knows that his past will fade, and he feels that he can fully commit to the life as the son. He knows that any sympathy towards him, if he were to be discovered, will also fade as he continues to lie. Everything he does to prop up his false identity will come back to haunt him if he is ever found out. The city's son living under my thumb. This is another line with a double meaning. The son is living under Hunter's thumb because he has stolen his life, but it also seems that the pimp and the priest has recognized Hunter and knows who he really is. He has Hunter living under his thumb as long as he has that knowledge over him. You couldn't compromise, so keep playing with fire. This is a warning to both Hunter and the pimp and the priest from each other. Hunter is unwilling to compromise his ideals and as such has made the pimp and the priest his enemy. He is playing with fire by going against the most beloved and powerful man of the city. The pimp and the priest has also made an enemy of Hunter and should be careful. While Hunter isn't the smartest person, he is determined and makes for a worthy adversary. Each of the two men are playing with fire by trying to take the other down. Overall, this song is really great, a nice calm moment after the chaos that was the previous song. This is one of those that has grown on me more and more over time, and now might be my favorite song off of the entire album. Track 11, King of Swords, Reversed. This song takes a drastic tonal shift from what we have heard so far in the album. It is an almost disco-sounding song that is incredibly upbeat and acts as what is essentially a montage of Hunter growing into his new life as the son and eventually running for mayor of the city. The King of Swords is a tarot card, which is a type of card that is used to read fortunes. Each tarot card has a meaning, but the card can also be reversed, which changes the meaning. To see the reversed King of Swords can mean the misuse of one's mental power or authority. Gears turning that no wrench can attack. This is a reference to what we heard back in the old haunt when we got the lyrics, gears twist and grind away, swirl up to speed. Hunter has now become a machine that no one can stop. He is confident and well loved by the people of the city. It turns out the son was quite popular, and Hunter is taking advantage of that. Consideration or pause had their time come and pass. Hunter may have been hesitant to step into the limelight when he was younger, but he doesn't have time for that hesitation now. He is fully confident in himself and is determined to win the favor of the city and use that power to stop the pimp and the priest. No gloves, bet you can't get enough. Make a fine parade so the public sways in your wake. Hunter has taken off the gloves and is ready to actively fight the priest for control of the city. He curries the favor of the public by throwing parades and appearing in other public gatherings. Hunter is rather gifted at campaigning. I can't imagine where he learned such theatrics from. And I just thought that I would go till the money's gone. I never wanted to fake it. The campaign that Hunter is running is strapped for cash, and he assumed that he would just run until the money ran out. But something inside of him is telling him to keep going. This could also be a reference to Hunter initially wanting to live an honest life as himself, making a living in a good career. Instead, he is now pretending to be someone he isn't and reaching for higher aspirations than he ever thought possible. Now I won't stop until everyone who ever done me wrong knows I'm not willing to take it. Hunter's mission in life is to get revenge on those who have wronged him. He is using his position as mayor to destroy the pimp and the priest. Boy, you've got a hard time. Bring yourself to glory. Hunter's life has been incredibly hard, and he thinks he deserves the glory of serving as the mayor of the city. This is all part of the larger shift in his life of wanting to take control of his own destiny rather than merely being the subject of fate. This could also be a line from the pimp and the priest, asking Hunter to give up his pursuits and play nice like the rest of the town. He is asking himself to bring himself to glory is essentially him asking Hunter to bow down to him and accept his word as gospel. I never wanted my name up in bright lights, but I think that I might be there soon. I owe it all to you. The first two lines are pretty self-explanatory. Hunter never thought he'd be the kind of person to be the mayor, but he is popular and it looks like he will be winning this election. The person that he owes this all to could be several different people. The first being Miss Therese, the woman who raised him and taught him to be kind. It could also be Miss Leading, the woman who scorned him and led him to join the military where he learned even more about what life and death really is. It could also be the son, the person whose identity Hunter stole. He owes his popularity to the son who was already popular with the people of the city before he went off to war. It could also be the fiancé, who encouraged him to run in the first place and gave him the confidence to do so. It could also be the pimp and the priest. Hunter's main goal in his mayoral pursuits was to take him down, so in that way, the pimp and the priest is the one that Hunter owes all of his success to. If it wasn't for him, then Hunter wouldn't be running in the first place. No one ever taught me what it meant to be alone. I had to learn on my lonesome. I love these lines. Hunter states that he was the one who had to learn what it means to be alone, and he's completely right. He learned that way back in Act 3 with the song that shares that same name. His loneliness and adversity has shaped him into the man that he is today. Now every feigning flame I chance upon, I put the fire on, I keep my wheels in motion. Hunter is a machine that can't be stopped. Now that he is the mayor, he works tirelessly to lift up those around him and keep the city humming along. This is also a good callback to the classic saying of, the flame is gone, the fire remains. And here's those spoils of war that you asked for. This line is really tricky to me. I think the spoils of war could refer to everything that Hunter learned while being in World War I. The term spoils of war is also used to refer to goods and money obtained in a drug bust, while Hunter is cleaning up the town and taking the spoils of war for himself. The spoils of war are also most likely the opportunities that Hunter has as the mayor to clean up the city of corruption. His greatest prize of all is the opportunity to shut down the pimp and the priest. That is his greatest treasure of all, and he will make good on that promise. Before the song finishes, we get a new melody that will show up in Act 5 as a completed song. It serves as some foreshadowing that won't be apparent until we cover that album. Overall, this song is a ton of fun and a great way to show Hunter climbing the social ladder and becoming the mayor of the city. Now let's see what he does with this newfound power. Track 12, If All Goes Well. Our next song is yet another one with a lot of energy. This song takes place after Hunter has become the mayor and is all about his aspirations and ambitions with his new role in the city. He thinks about everything that he wants to do and how he'll take down the pimp and the priest. Was it logical lusting after fame when ambition had never ended well for us? Hunter questions if he should have been so bold with his plans to take over the city since everything he's tried before had failed. He sees this life as a series of failures stemming from decisions he has made and wonders if this plan to be the mayor will result in the same bitter end. Now everything that you lost is surely coming to you. This is a play on the motif that has been used a couple times back in Act 3. Back then, it was something along the lines of, everything you thought you had, you lost. Now those things are slowly and surely coming back to Hunter. He is regaining his confidence and power. He is in a relationship with a fiancé and seems to be doing alright with that. and his ability to shape his own destiny is now his own again since he has become determined to take down the pimp and the priest. Every catastrophe has shaped me into something new. All the tragedies of Hunter's life have made him into the person that he is today. While I'm sure he would have rather had a little bit easier of a life, he knows that it was through those low points and pains that have brought him all the way to the top. Just don't get carried away making those same mistakes. I know my limit, but I'll push it good. Hunter is cautioned to be careful not to take things too far. His previous ambition has caused him so much pain and he needs to be cautious. He acknowledges this, but says that he will push his limits. Now that he is on top, he will not be controlled or persuaded by others. I'll give them a hold and a break to breathe. Never forget who picks you up when you fall. The first line is interesting. It seems that Hunter will be ruthless with his enemies, but will still give them time to breathe. Like he wants to destroy them, but not go so far as to kill them. These lines remind me of wrestling in that way. Hunter will bring them to submission metaphorically, but not finish the job completely. We then have the voices in the background urging Hunter to stay humble and remember who picks him up. I believe that these voices are the oracles, and they are reminding him that they have been the ones to guide him so far. Hunter's confidence has made him dismissive of their advice. And if they can't play nice, I won't play with them at all. Hunter is past the point of compromising. He knows what he wants the city to be and has no place for corruption. This shows his approach to confronting the pimp and the priest. He has not yet been found out by the priest, so Hunter goes ahead with his plan of taking him down. I'll give them a kick when I learn to lead. You're getting over your head once again. While he is still new at being mayor, Hunter is confident that he will be able to make all of his plans come true once he has learned the ropes of leadership. The voices again tell him that he is taking things too far and needs to be cautious. He is already making the same mistakes that he has in the past. And if they don't get out, then I'll just bury them all. This is another line that shows his uncompromising nature. I also think this line hints to Hunter's first major action as mayor, his shuttering of the dime. From a song on the next album, we know that the dime has closed down at some point. I believe that happens in this song. I can imagine him telling the ladies of the dime to get out and never return. Some of them comply with his directions, but others are hesitant. Hunter says that if they don't get out, he will come after them with the full force of his newfound power. In this way, Hunter has achieved his goal that he set out to when becoming the mayor. He has shut down the dime and wounded the pimp and the priest. I find it interesting that he doesn't reveal the priest, however. My guess is that he knows that might be a bridge too far and he can't risk being revealed as an imposter himself. I swear my motive can still remain sincere, and I can remedy all who've wronged before me. Hunter seems to realize that his actions are mostly fueled by spite and rage. His shuttering of the dime was born from a personal vendetta. Despite this, he thinks he can still be sincere in his plans to reshape the city and take it back from the corrupt politicians that came before him. Those who have wronged before him could also be a reference to Hunter's family. He thinks that by transforming the city into something less sinful, he can be forgiven of the sins of his terrible father. By shutting down the dime, he can erase the sad story of Miss Therese. Now everyone that you lost would come back crying to you. Abandoned memories of family trees I've buried too deep. The first line can refer to two things. The first being misleading. He lost her and now she will come back crying to him if she recognizes who he is. It doesn't seem that she does yet, however. The family trees he mentioned is another play on words. He feels that his past can come back to haunt him, but he was also cautioned by his mother to never stray past the tree that stood at the path to the city. That warning is coming back to haunt him now that he has everything that he ever wanted. I can also imagine that Hunter is worried about other family members of the Sun introducing themselves to him. Every person who remembers who the Sun is someone that could discover that Hunter isn't really who he says he is. And if they don't get out, then I'll just pity them all. This is a slight variation on the chorus. I think it is still referring to the ladies of the dime. Hunter has softened his language and reveals that he will take pity on the women who have nowhere else to go and try to do something to help them. Although he is in power, Hunter still isn't heartless. Will you carry us to Eden? Someone to believe in. This sounds like the people of the city singing to Hunter. He has become somewhat of a mythical figure to them, and they believe that he can transform their city into something better, something more, carrying them off to the Garden of Eden, a place free from sin. breaking down the walls which kept us locked away. Again, I think this could relate to the closing of the dime. The women were metaphorically locked up in their lives as sex workers for the pimp, and Hunter has now broken those walls. It could also be a more religious symbolism from the people of the city, painting Hunter as a Christ-like figure to them. Lead us into brilliance, born by your resilience, love us all in spite of what we'll do to you. Hunter's resilience being mentioned is most likely his time spent in World War I. He is seen as tough and capable for managing to come back from the war alive. They don't know the details of what he did to survive and the people he left behind. The last line is a bit of foreshadowing to events that will take place on the next album. It is also another line that solidifies Hunter's position as a Christ figure to the people of the town. I knew that I did this for a reason. This is one of my favorite callbacks in The Deer Hunter. It is a reference to the Act 3 song, Father, where the lyrics were, I knew that I kept this for a reason. That was in reference to the bottle of poison that he used to kill the father. This time he is reassuring himself. He's telling himself that he stole the son's identity for a good reason. He's trying to justify this vile action by pointing out all the good he has done since he started this new life. The reality is that Hunter might have been alright without stealing the son's identity. Sure, the son was popular before he left for the war, but Hunter is still Hunter and could have won the hearts of the people all the same. This disguise is just something that Hunter can use to hide his true self from the rest of the world. Maybe hiding isn't the best thing. This song is really great and a ton of fun. It really sounds like Hunter is angry and ready to start taking names to the mayor, fully blinded by his ambition, but there are still aspects of this double life that need to be addressed that he has yet to confront. Track 13, The Line. This song is all about Hunter confronting himself. He has gone so far with the identity of the son and now needs to leave behind any semblance of who he was before. In this song, he sings to himself and convinces himself to leave Hunter behind completely. Heartache buried down below with your hands tied tight around it. Have a hard time letting go like it never even happened. Hunter still holds on to who he is deep down inside of himself. His life is portrayed as a broken heart, which is honestly very fitting. He cannot find the strength to let go of that life though. He still holds on to who he was before he became the son. It's the end of the line for you and I. Don't make believe we even tried. It's the end of the line for you and I. Hunter has decided to fully lose any semblance of himself. He insists that he never even tried to become something great before he was the son, and thus, that person doesn't benefit him at all. This could also be interpreted as Hunter and the fiancé breaking up. She knows who he is, and they decide they can't be together anymore. I think both interpretations are valid. Spring had gone and clipped your wings. This is a reference to Hunter's early life at the lake with Miss Therese. It was an idealized life for Hunter at the time, but his mother's suffocating grasp kept him tied down and isolated. This also calls back to Hunter's similarity to Icarus at the beginning of Act 2. And the summer led astray. This refers to Hunter's experience with misleading. He was led astray by her and felt betrayed and frustrated. The heat of summer also calls to mind the heat of their passionate romance and the fire that was left in its wake. Autumn left a bitter sting, but the winter froze away. The bitter sting was Hunter's time in the war. It hurt him and taught him so many terrible things. After that, he went cold and dark, just like the winter. The only thing to pull him out of this was stealing the son's identity. This serves to reinforce his determination to fully abandon his old life. Now we dream of bigger things, now we sing to set us free. Hunter finds comfort and solace in the act of leaving himself behind. He sees that in order to become more, he must fully leave behind the sad life that has tied him down since he left the city. Was lost in limbo long enough for two, but my identity was wasted on you. It seems that Hunter thinks that he and the son were always destined to share their fates. He is thinking that if he had been born as the son and not as himself, that he would have turned out better. He is bitter that he wasted his identity as the naive, scared, bitter, sad Hunter. Cast out the past like demons ritually removed, make way for the awakening so long overdue. Hunter sees the act of leaving his life behind as casting out a demon. He has become so loathsome of what he was and feels that becoming the son is something that was always meant to be. That is it for this song. A little lighter on the analysis, but this video is already long enough as is. This song is really beautiful and a good last light song before we get into the next two, which feel a lot more sinister. Track 14, Wait. Okay, so this next song is really tricky for me. It is a song that's been referred to as a duet between Hunter and Misleading, but the lyrics really make it seem like it's only one singer. My thought is that it is a song that could be sung from either one of their perspectives. The other issue I run into is that I think this song reads like it could be sung from the perspective of the pimp and the priest. The lyrics fit well for his origin story, but there was also a callback in the next album that convinced me that this song was about him. At the end of the day, Casey has confirmed that this song is about Misleading and Hunter, but I think it fits better in the narrative that I have set up if it is sung from the perspective of the priest. We're going to do a little bit of all three in this section, but don't get mad at me if this isn't exactly matched to the canon. In the canon, we're also supposed to have an Act 6, but I don't think that will happen, and I'm treating these as a 5-album series. Some adjustments are needed to tie up all the loose ends. I lost my faith when I was young. I clenched my fist to bite my tongue. This seems to be a reference to Hunter and Misleading's cynical views of the world. They were both impacted by tragedies when they were young, and it has led them to be bitter and angry at the world around him. From the priest's perspective, he grew up in the church, perhaps as an altar boy or another member of the clergy, but lost that faith. He has then kept his tongue in check and resisted the urge to speak up about what he saw as a false religion. I leave awake from all the things that I had done, 'cause there wouldn't be a thing when I moved on. Hunter and Misleading leave destruction in their path. There is nothing left after they are through with whatever issue they have to deal with. They also hint that they may not believe in any sort of afterlife and thus don't see much wrong with their destruction in this life. The priest can see how his vile actions at the church and the dime have destroyed the innocence of those around him, but he can't help himself. He seems to take pleasure in the act of destroying those men and women. He also hints at his lack of faith in the afterlife. Then I said, wait, are our body really piles of dirt, and is the soul just a metaphor? The meaning of this is the same for all three of the characters. This is the moment when they start questioning what they have been taught and decide to give themselves to the earth instead of believing in any sort of God. I imagine this would have happened while the priest had already become a priest. He lost his faith while in the church and decided to use his status to start his terrible grift with the dime. I keep myself from looking too far up. I fear that there is a heaven above. The characters in our story actively stop themselves from seeking advice from God. They know that their actions will bring judgment on them, and they are too afraid to know the truth about God and the afterlife. If there is a heaven above, none of them will be going there. I stood in lines to bow my head. I'd fold my hands and speak in tongues to whisper worries to the dead. The priest grew up going to church and eventually followed in the profession as a man of faith. He would confide his worries to the saints and those who have died before him. He was the model man of faith before he lost everything and turned to the dark. But I could tell no apparition heard a single word I said, but I'd still call my fear into the air. The priest could tell that no one was hearing or answering his prayers. He had lost his faith, but he still kept on praying. The last line is also a callback to the "like a prayer to the air" line used back in Bittersweet 4 and 5. Is my body really part of the earth? And is there blood running through my veins? The priest feels that he has become something other than human through his actions at the church and the dime. He doesn't even know if he could be considered a living being since he has gone so hollow inside. I'll know when I turn to dust, but I fear the answer isn't enough. While everyone will know what the afterlife truly is after they die, the priest is worried that even this won't be enough for him. He has an inability to be satisfied and will continue to want more and more throughout all of eternity. I want to give it up, but I just need it too much. This line could be from any of our characters. Maybe Hunter is referring to his past life. He wants to leave it behind, but he can't let go of it completely just yet. He could also be referring to his grudge against the pimp and the priest. He knows he should let it be, but it is what fuels him. This could also be from the priest's perspective. Perhaps he wishes he could give up his terrible actions. He wishes he could stop taking advantage of the men and women of the church and the dime, but he needs it too much. Although the brothel has been shut down, he has a plan to get things back up and running, one he will follow through with. I hope there's not a heaven above. In the end, our characters admit that they won't be able to stop their actions and can only hope that nothing awaits them after death. If there is a heaven above, then there will surely be a hell waiting to swallow the three of them up. And that's it for Wait. It's a really interesting song with a lot of different interpretations. Again, I know I'm going contrary to some stuff that Casey has said, but I think the Pimp and the Priest connection leads to some really satisfying moments in Act 5. Alright, on to our final song. Track 15, Ouroboros. The name of this track comes from the classic image of a snake eating itself. That image can symbolize rebirth, endless destruction, self-destruction, an endless cycle, and a lot of other stuff. I think it is to symbolize how Hunter has put himself in a bad situation. By trying to take too much, he is only destroying himself. This song is kind of eerie sounding. It fits perfectly for the context of the lyrics. This song starts with the Pimp and the Priest meeting up with Hunter and letting him know a couple things. This is the plan that he cooked up that we talked about earlier. I bet you thought that you'd succeed, pulling the wool right over me. To pull the wool over someone's eyes is to trick someone. The Pimp and the Priest tells Hunter that he knows he has been tricking the town, but it won't work on him. He knows Hunter isn't who he says he is. Hard to believe this snake stayed in the grass just long enough to catch a rabbit's feet. The priest knew that Hunter wasn't who he said he was, but chose to keep this to himself just long enough to use it as leverage over him. If Hunter wasn't the mayor or in a position of power, then the blackmail would have been useless. Now he has control over the most powerful man in the city. With telescoping glances, hands romanced, enticing you to keep laboring against the clock in spite of secrecy. The term telescoping glances is a reference to a line used in the Act 2 song Smiling Swine. There, the pimp introduced himself to Hunter by telescoping his hand. Now we have the priest telling Hunter that he intentionally acted like he didn't know who he was in order for Hunter to follow his ambitions too far. Hunter was racing against a clock that he didn't even know about. You couldn't know revealed itself to me the second you decided to compete. Hunter was actually doing a good job of keeping his true identity hidden from the priest up until he decided to take him on and destroy the dime. The pimp then recognized the vengeful Hunter as the heartbroken boy who was crushed by misleading. I fell down and I fell apart. I never wanted to hurt no one. I never wanted to be your city's son. Hunter falls to his knees and said that he didn't plan to hurt anyone and never wanted to be the son in the first place. We don't know if this is true. It seems that he has enjoyed his new life and maybe this is just a tactic to win some sympathy from the priest. He quickly realizes that he won't get any and then changes his tone. Then I cried out to his crooked heart, I never wanted to hurt no one but you. The only person that Hunter wanted to harm was the pimp and the priest. Hunter's entire pursuit of fame and glory has been in service of destroying the man who used his mother and his first love as a pawn for his sick money-making operation. I bet you thought that you could breathe a satisfying sigh of relief. Again, the priest waited just long enough to lull Hunter into a sense of comfort. He let Hunter think that he had gotten away with it before striking and destroying all of his plans. A terrible thing, forgetting where you came from. Or have you trouble when you fall asleep? These lines have a double meaning that serves for the priest to twist the knife a little further into Hunter. His forgetting where he came from could be a simple reference to his fake identity. It could also be a dig at Hunter. He was conceived at the dime and born by one of the pimp's workers. In that way, the pimp feels like he has some ownership over Hunter. The priest assumes that these things are digging at Hunter, that they keep him awake at night. It is also a play on the phrase, how do you sleep at night, when referring to someone who has done something awful. I've seen you fabricate, manipulate, and hear you masquerade, but if we're poaching ghosts, you know that I've got a few that I would raise. These lines are an attempt by the pimp to make Hunter realize that they are actually quite similar. They both live double lives and have done things that they wouldn't be proud of. The priest could reveal that Hunter left the sun to die and it would destroy him. He would never be trusted again. Settle yourself. As long as I'm protected, you can bet your secret's safe with me. This is the deal that the pimp has brought to Hunter. Let me do my thing, protect me, and I won't reveal your secret to the rest of the world. Hunter is left with an impossible choice. The end of this song tells us what he decides to do with this proposition. Lost my soul in the place of the great deceiver. Hunter has lost his soul. He has given in to the priest's demands and has chosen to keep him protected in order to keep his own identity a secret. The place of the great deceiver could be hell, the place where the devil lives. It could also be a reference to the city itself. the place where Hunter was first deceived by misleading. Foolish hearts let foolish plans awry. They told me, don't veer far from your home, try never to leave her. Hunter's foolish heart has led him to reject the advice of the oracles. They warned him so long ago that if he only stayed home, he would be safe from the pains of the world. Hunter didn't follow their advice, and now that has led to all of this. Near I landed, here I'll live and die. The decisions that he has made have led him to this place. He is in power in the city, but he is merely the pawn of the person that he despises most. That is where he landed, and that is where he will die. He has made his bed, and now he has to lay in it. But it wasn't long before I felt nothing below me, and all of the ground I thought I'd gained taken away. I thought I was strong, not strong enough. My mettle was bending. Hunter came so far only to have all of it taken away from him. He is now essentially back to where he started, which is becoming a running theme in these albums. He thought he would be strong enough to stand up to the pimp and the priest, but ended up bending to his will instead. Foolish plans kissed foolish hearts goodbye. This is a reference to Hunter abandoning his old life for the life of the sun. He thought he was abandoning a foolish heart, but he was always foolish. There was no perfect plan. He was always going to end up worse off than he started. Traveled too far from the river's side. Again, Hunter was warned to stay back where he grew up. He ended up straying too far from that advice, and it has caused him to be put in this terrible situation. He laments his current state in life and thinks that he would have been much better off if he had just been himself and lived the life he was given. The song ends with a sinister melody that sounds somewhat unfinished. It is the final notes that usher us into the final act, one where all of this will come to a head and the sinister truths of the world that Hunter lives in will be revealed. And that is going to do it for Act 4, Rebirth and Reprise. This was definitely the longest video I've made so far, and I'm super glad that I got it all done. This is the album that introduced me to the Deer Hunter, and there was so much that I didn't pick up on even after listening to it countless times, so going through this again with a more analytical eye was like super cool and super just interesting. If you've made it this far, then thank you so much for watching. Please check out my other Deer Hunter Explained videos if you haven't, and subscribe if you aren't so you can be notified when Act 5 releases. I've also got some of my own personal music up on this channel that you can check out, and I'm currently doing a series of interviews with other amateur musicians that may or may not be live by the time this video goes up. Probably not, because I'm going to edit this thing pretty soon. I don't think I'll throw up my interview yet, but that's cool. I was also at the Deer Hunter show in Seattle on this past Saturday, and that was or Sunday, I guess. That was super awesome. It was a fantastic live show. The last one of their tour. Casey and the band were amazing. It was super fun. There's a lot of cool, fun people there. I even had a couple people who recognized me from these videos, so thank you guys so much for watching. It was super fun to meet everybody, and it was just awesome to be in a place with a bunch of Deer Hunter fans, because I don't get to do that very often, so I'm super stoked to see them whenever they go on tour next. It was like once in a lifetime awesome experience. They played so many great stuff. They played a lot of great songs from this album, and just a lot of my favorite songs there, so it was a super great experience. But as always, thank you guys so much. Again, check out my other videos. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I'm going to see you guys in the next one. All right, see ya.